Hello, welcome to Fridays at 5. I'm Karen Taylor of the Color Vowel Chart with my colleagues here today. We have a nice range of colleagues from different countries and different settings. Hello, everybody. Our topic today is tips and just a discussion for submitting conference proposals, and particularly a conference proposal for the Color Vowel Conference for English Language Educators. Don't try to say that acronym, it's weird. But we can play at the end, put it that way. CVCELE.
Seal.
How do you want to say it? Okay. That's my
CVCELE.
my little challenge for the day.
It sounds medical.
It does sound medical. That's right. That's right. So welcome to our session. Hello. Um, Great to have you here. We're a small enough group, and we'll be recording this. We will post this, but likely it's going to be followed mostly by our Color Vowel people, because what we're doing today is we're getting to know the process for submitting a proposal for the Color Vowel Conference, and then we'll put it in that context, okay? And if you're here because you're interested in another conference, maybe you're watching the recorded session and you just want tips in general. Just take what we say, and take what you can into that next setting, and we can have a follow-up session on other conferences. What do we have by other conferences? I think it's worth contextualizing what we're doing with the Color Vowel Conference. That might set the stage nicely. A lot of what we've done with Color Vowel started with the TESOL conference. That's and Jennifer, could you be my scribe and just put these things in the chat, since we want to be inclusive of everyone. TESOL.
Do you mean WA-TESOL or big TESOL?
Well, both, but TESOL I'll start with as the parent concept of Teachers of English for Speakers of Other Languages. TESOL is the big organization, and as early as 2001, I was meeting some of the colleagues, including Shirley and some others who aren't here, who led to the Color Vowel Charter, or who contributed to that early formation, as well as small conferences like Washington area TESOL. And so for many years, it's always been this question of getting together with educators and, of all kinds. And in time, what Jennifer and I were talking about, what was this, like maybe 4 months ago now, Jennifer? We were just realizing that there aren't many conferences that are dedicated to pronunciation teaching in a practical kind of super practical context. There are a couple of, there are others around the world, but there isn't one in the United States that's entirely practical. There is one that I know and respect and love, that you're going to like this acronym, the PSSLT, the pronunciation second, PSLLT, PSLT, known as PSLT, the pronunciation second language learning and education conference, something like that. And so PSLT is a theoretical and into practical kind of conference. They combine the two, but having gone to it, I think it's not just English. That's the other thing that's unique about it. It's not just English pronunciation, it's all kinds of pronunciation teaching. So there are people who teach Japanese pronunciation and people who specialize in Finnish pronunciation. And so that's its own unique group of folks who come together. I love that conference. It moves around, but it's mostly, it's mostly in the Midwest and in Canada and the Northeast. Okay. Sometimes in Arizona. So what we're doing, we're inviting practitioners. So if you're a practitioner, you teach English as a second or foreign language, or maybe you teach something that's adjacent to that. Maybe you you're a speech therapist and you have clients who are non-native speakers, so you kind of are also an English as a second language teacher of sorts. Something like that. And we all will have this common thread that we teach spoken English on some level. Maybe you don't see yourself as a pronunciation coach, but you do address how spoken English works for your learners. So that's the idea, is to come together, have a bunch of fun, but also share some well-cooked ideas, right? Some well-formed, thought out, developed ideas. Who wants to add something on to that? questions.
no half-baked stuff. I can't bring up any half-baked
No
ideas.
half-baked stuff. Exactly. No half-baked ideas, just fully baked ideas. No, I mean,
And they can be little ideas and big ideas. So we're trying to accommodate lots of different styles and what people feel like they can bring. So there are going to be sessions where you can just share one activity or handout or idea that you have for teaching that you want to share in sort of a roundtable setting, and all the way up to people who have done research and want to present their results or want to lead a panel discussion amongst, with 3 or 4 like-minded practitioners. So, lots of things that people can offer.
yeah. And so today we want you to be able to walk away with, questions answered, questions that you already have, and questions that emerge through this dialogue. So just let's make that an open conversation, knowing that whatever goes to your mind is going to be useful for someone else as well. One
I
place.
guess I have a question.
Sure.
Are we assuming that everybody already has a basic color vowel orientation, or not?
Thank you for asking. So I don't think that's not how we want it to be, right? We want it to be open to all kinds of folks. And we have explicitly said that you don't have to be color vowel trained to attend the conference. You don't even have to know color vowel. But what we're trying to craft is a sense that you do need to be curious. You just need to be curious about trying new things, open to new ideas. If you are a person who's always looking for a new way to do what you do, chances are it's going to be you're going to be well aligned to the way we explore spoken English. And, do I hope that you'll take on color vowel training? Yeah, I do. But that's
I
not my
can
main
assume
purpose.
that any presentation I give, I don't have to introduce color vowels. I can assume that everybody is up to speed with color vowels because they will have gotten an orientation at the beginning, the beginning of the conference or something like that.
I was thinking that might be good if we had sort of an early session on Friday morning that was equivalent to what we often do in our informational webinars, just sort of a overview of what color vowels all about, just in case.
Even the launch pad is enough, probably.
Yeah, just to get anybody who has come and is not familiar with it. But I think the approach is so accessible and the chart is so accessible. I think anybody who arrives, and if somebody came who knew nothing about it, I think they'd catch on pretty fast.
Yeah. The other beautiful thing about this conference is that it's small. It's going to, the maximum number of people that we have is, Jennifer, what's that number?
145.
There we go, 145 people. That's smaller than a lot of conferences. It's also going to fill before the conference happens. I really doubt we're going to have space as a walk-in kind of situation. I certainly hope not. And so that also means we can take advantage of the fact that we already provide online professional development and these kinds of free events. We've actually started crafting an online space for conference registrants so that when we're to that point, we can put everybody into that course that comes with the conference. I call it a course, but it's a space where we can provide basic, a video that introduces anyone who's not already familiar. And that way we get to hit the ground running, so to say, at the conference and not waste any time. Not that it would be wasted, but you know what I mean, right? That we can move right into the excitement of now with this foundation, what can we do, or what are we doing out there?
Are you going to publish the proceedings?
Maybe. It's a first time event, so we want to, but I don't want to bite off more than I'm ready to chew at this point. That's how we've gotten that good question. And, it's certainly something that's tempting, but even I have limits to how many things we can do at one time. So
It's
Trying
still
not-
just the two of us, so.
Hi, Amina.
Hi, I wanted to ask about the categories. 'Cause there are
Sure.
9 categories. The one that I'm interested in is the one that says technology for teaching spoken English or pronunciation.
Great.
I'm working on something now, a project now. It's teaching pronunciation to beginners online, and it's an accompaniment to a required textbook and an adult program. And I'm using Color Vowel. I use that to base it on. That's based on your videos and things that you have on your website. And also I took some of Dr. War's workshops when she had them at AU. And I'm just wondering, I mean, really it's about introducing the learners to English pronunciation, that it's important. And it's really for teachers, so that the teachers want to teach pronunciation, because it's not part of the curriculum at all. And as robust as the textbook that they use is, pronunciation is not any part of it. So that's the goal. And there's it's an online class. I taught that class it's at the Washington English Center, and I did teach that class. And so I volunteered to make a supplement for the teachers with the textbook to get them interested. Is that
Wonderful.
something that would fit in category 4?
Yeah, when we're talking about categories, why don't we, have you been looking at the actual proposal submission form? When you
Yeah,
say
I looked at it and I saw the categories and I was like, what category am I? So
Right. Well, let me orient everybody, our viewers, and then we'll use your comments and question as a sort of a good case study to explore. First of all, what comes to mind, I mean, everyone else can speak up. I hear curriculum development. That's kind of the theme that you're touching on, is a program that has a course, it has another course, but it's missing something, and you're developing content in the form of a curricular piece, right?
Or
Yeah.
even materials.
Yeah, materials,
development.
definitely. Yeah, there's definitely materials for them.
Yeah.
Online materials. They get an online PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah,
Great.
that sounds more like materials to me than
Okay.
really when I think of technology, I think of an app or taking an online thing like Quizlet or
I see.
what's
Yeah, I
the-
think online teaching is now not itself technology. I know that sounds weird, but so you can say whatever you're doing could be done face to face, for example.
It could be.
Yeah, so that's a good test that this is not really a presentation on technology so much as materials that you're developing to enhance a program.
Yes, that use technology.
Yes, yes. Well, let's take a look. I'm going to share screen and we're going to go straight to the website that we have set up, our conference page. So let's take a look there. And I'm down already, scroll down. This is a much longer page. I will not scroll you to death, but it's right here. and Jennifer can put, or I can put the link in there. The call for proposals, just to kind of review, and we'll listen to or look at this with Amina's idea in mind, right? We're looking for innovative, highly effective uses of the color vowel approach in particular, or Blue Canoe. That would be one category. Color vowel infused in activities, materials, games, or curricula for specific learner populations like the Washington English Center. That would fit right in there, I think. Action research or case studies exploring the impact of color vowel instruction on learner outcomes. Dr. Barr, that sounds like you.
Oh, I could do that. Yeah, okay.
Right. So it's a little bit of you do a kind of a reverse design, but you've done so much for so long. You keep saying these are just stories, but they are case studies.
Yeah,
So it's
okay.
a matter of formalizing it, finding, these common themes. How did you come to your conclusions? And that's what you can, that would be an example.
Although people have heard this already.
Yeah, but
I could
drilling
always say
down
more.
into one example might be a way to go.
Yeah.
Drilling down to particular strategies that, what do you do with the objects that you pull together in the menagerie? Just,
Oh, yeah, and I can actually bring them.
Pronunciation assessment activities. You know, we don't know what's happening out there, and we might have people actually doing pronunciation assessment, or who already do it without color vowel, but are now intrigued to share it with us. Okay, that's assessment's always important. English accent diversity and mutual comprehensibility and equity for native and non-native English speaking teachers. There's a lot packed into that bullet point. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This is partly about accentedness, in being able to be employed, especially in English speaking countries when English is not your first language and you're an English language teacher. But it also touches on the nature of what we teach. This mutual comprehensibility part is about, you know, are we overly focused on features in a given moment? Are we overly focused on features that merely distinguish maybe where we're from more than that they impact how well we understand each other? So that would be, there's a lot going on there, right? And there's that little disclaimer, or that I wouldn't call it disclaimer, but the statement that it's not a requirement to be color vowel trained. Okay. Deadline.
Or it's not required that your presentation include color vowel.
Right.
As long as it's spoken English, pronunciation, or accent related.
Yeah. And of course, by the time it's at the conference, we've vetted it, we've looked at it, we've decided that it's well cooked, you know, again, well baked. Any questions so far?
What if you wanted to, I mean, I'm seeing this panel discussion. What if you wanted to be part of a panel discussion, but didn't have a buddy to do it with?
Yeah. Well, we'll be watching for some of that.
Do you do, you know, online dating type matchups with other people?
I'd say that that's a nice idea. We'll be watching for opportunities because it is a fairly small, you know, 2 days with a certain number of slots. We'll be looking at proposals and trying to decide what's the best way to move forward with a proposal that we really like. Are we going to be able to combine it with 2 similar proposals and make a panel? So we will contact presenters when we come up with those kinds of, say, a synthesis of ideas. Or a suggestion.
If you actually put in that you have a panel discussion proposal, it will ask you for the names of your other presenters, because it's assuming that you've already kind of talked with others. Let's get together and do that. So there you could just put either ideas of the kind of people, or if you have ideas of people but you know, haven't contacted them yet, but you know, you will be asked who the other participants will be. So
yeah. And remember, we have our open communities. We've got the Facebook group for folks who have a copy of the Color Vowel Approach book. That's a private group in Facebook. And then for everybody, regardless of whether they've learned color vowel or have a book or whatever, in our teachers community, that is a free community. So that's a place where you could try to connect. But otherwise, it's, you know, you want to start talking to people, you know, if you have an idea, you can talk to us. Okay. As far as sessions go. Yeah. Jennifer, could you tell us a little bit about the different workshop types? I see there's some different times. What do you want folks to know about these categories?
Yeah, for the sake of trying to plan out a schedule, we came up with 4 different presentation types, and you know, put time frames for them, and we have slots in the schedule for those. Now, that's not to say that we can't change things up if we need to, or if we want to, but it just gave us a basic idea of how many presentations we're looking for, trying to find a variety of things for people throughout the 2 days. So these are frameworks. If you feel you're going to need more time, please include that note in your proposal. So, but workshops, interactive presentations, these are things where you're going to be presenting something, but part of your presentation is some kind of group activity or partner activity, you know, where you tell people to turn to the person next to them and do something, or they might be actually walking out of your presentation with an outline for, you know, a certain kind of lesson, or you know, maybe you're doing brainstorming together, but there's sort of an outcome to your presentation. So that's 35 minutes, and hopefully another 10 minutes allowed for questions and answers. We have panel discussions, which are about the same length of time, and that's those will all be held in the auditorium, and we have a little stage there, and we're looking for 3 or 4 presenters on that panel who will discuss a topic, and you know, it's not a debate or anything, but you each have something to share on that. Just regular presentations are, you have facts, you have a case study, you have an interesting take on something that you want to present. There's no expected participation on the part of the people attending your session. They're there to listen and learn from you, and then of course 10 minutes for Q&A at the end. The teaching tips or activities, what we're calling swap shop, these are going to be little roundtable sessions, and there will be a group of 4 or more people who will be sharing at this, and then others might just choose to attend and listen. And each of you will get 5 minutes to present your activity, your handout, you know, a Google slide presentation, something that you have found really works in your own classroom, an idea that you're really excited about. And you'll just have to present it, say how you use it, what the context is for, and then you'll have a quick time for Q&A after you're done presenting. The next person will go, and then if there's time at the end, we could take sort of general questions. But basically, you're there to share stuff, you share your own experience teaching English. And so we'll have several of those sessions. We might, depending on the interest, we might ask you to present in one swap shop on Friday and present again the same thing on Saturday, depending on what we have, because people might want to really hear what you have to say, but you know, it's conflicting with another session they want to go to. So
actually, that brings up a question I had about concurrent and versus plenary sessions.
Right. The plenary sessions, keynote speakers, nothing else is going on. So those big sessions, but then there are 2 classrooms and the auditorium at the facility, and so at all times there will not be any more than 3 going on at the same time. And depending on how many proposals we get, you know, we might have the opportunity to ask people to present both on Friday and Saturday, you know, depending if we have space, mainly because there might be some local teachers who work on Fridays, can't get Friday off, but would be interested in coming on Saturday. So we're trying to.
I would love it if there's an unused room, if we could set it up for like color vowel games or something, because I have all these. I mean, it's not the thing something you can actually present exactly, but I would love to just play colored out, or
we've got a color it out session time in one of the classrooms.
We can play the drinking game, you know, the color vowel
drinking games, no alcohol. But we don't want to pay the insurance for that. But in the mornings we'll have at least in the mornings, we're still working on the what space is available, but you will be able to purchase color some materials like Color It Out and charts and things like that. We will have perhaps Blue Canoe will be there and you can talk to them about subscribing. And then maybe some other vendors. So, but we're still looking into that. It's not going to be, there's not going to be an expo to walk through. It's so.
Yeah. I might help. I'm such a visual person. I thought it might excite you. We need to state this is happening at a museum. First of all, it's not happening at a conference center. It's happening at Planet Word, which is, I think it touts itself as the world's first interactive language museum. It's in Washington, D.C. Has anybody besides Jennifer and I, has anybody been there before? You've been there?
I've played concerts there before they renovated it.
Oh,
When
wonderful.
in the old school building, but
Yeah.
so I'm not sure what the space looks like now. But
It's
No, it's
beautiful.
gorgeous. And the interactive site, just to give you a glimpse, this is the Doll's House view. We're going to have this room, classroom, and this classroom, and this I think this is the auditorium, Jennifer, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 3 different rooms on 2 different floors, and that's sort of the back side. The front side is where the exhibits are. Okay. And so when you go, if you're attending,
You'll come in where that tile floor is, that black and white tile, that's a special entrance. That's not the main entrance. We'll have signs and stuff, but you'll come in there and that's where you'll register. And
Yeah.
and then
So
you
this
just
is
go
this is
upstairs.
a large room that holds 145. That's why we have that number. And then we'll keep that room throughout the conference and have this smaller, it's fairly large, smaller room and smaller room.
Actually, it's not that one on the left, Karen. That's something else. It's that room on the right, that classroom, and then
this
there it
one.
is, right there
Yeah,
behind
there we
it.
go.
Yeah.
There we go. So it's one, yeah, you can see this is a beautiful auditorium, beautifully refurbished. Anyway, so just to give you an idea of the space that you would be in as a participant and as a presenter, it's kind of fun to see, isn't it? And so we're not quite sure about extra spaces for selling, but we're figuring that out with the management there. Pretty neat stuff. So I was thinking, yes, Jennifer.
Suzanne has a question.
I have a question. Are you planning to record each session?
We're not. We really, and I'll tell you why briefly. You can imagine the answer already. It's so tempting to want to do it all and to have everything, but getting any kind of recording requires, first of all, having the right equipment to do it well. And then you've got to have the resources to edit and to get it up. And right now, I think given the size of our organization and the vision we have, we've all made it through pandemic. We've done a ton of online learning. And we just want to focus on that one face-to-face time together. And it'll be the first of what we hope are multiple conferences. By the way, what we're thinking, and we always want input, is to have a face-to-face one year, a virtual the next year, a face-to-face the following year. And in this way, because we're such a global reach, we can have all of our international teachers participate in global conferences without all the travel requirements, right? And so we will work our way in that direction, but I'm really trying to put my foot down with myself to not go in that direction for now, although it's so tempting. And the way I see it is, if we're mindful with ourselves face to face, we can take in what is said without the extra energy that goes into being aware of everybody outside and online and twittering or whatever used to happen. It's exhausting at some point, isn't it? So if we can just be present with one another, we can then say, you know what, these sessions would be great as online workshops as well. We have time to turn those into that. We know that. So that's my thought there. Any other adds there? If I could.
Don't worry about that. If in developing your presentation, don't worry about accommodating both the people in front of you and an online audience. Both all 3 rooms, all 3 spaces have the ability to, so if you have a PowerPoint or something like that to display, and there is blackboard space, whiteboard space. So however you want to give your presentation, we'll be able to accommodate that.
Yeah. in a moment, I'd like to move into brainstorming a little bit of the kinds of things that we might be, not just that we're thinking about ourselves, but what would we like to know about others that others are doing? And this might kind of help brainstorm for us and for others who might watch this session. So start, know that that's coming. But I thought maybe it'd be helpful too to know the just overall schedule and some of the features of the conference, so you can think about that as well. I think our website is just terrific, and I want to thank Jennifer for putting this together. She's been the mastermind of getting this site up. As you come down, notice that, if anybody tries to box me in and say, who's it for? I'm like, yeah, it's for anybody who does something with spoken English. And so we're hoping to have people from all of these sectors who are curious to meet and talk with other people from other sectors. That also, I think, is unique to our conference. I think a lot of conferences over time become very, you go to the same conference, you've seen these people before, it becomes a very in-group. And we're already, a lot of us are connected through Color Vowel, but I'm very curious to know, because it's a simple, deep object, if I can stop for a minute, because the Color Vowel chart itself is a simple, deep object, one of the reasons I'm so motivated to have this conference is I know there are thousands of people using the chart that I've never met, right? People who see it and, I got it, and they buy it, and they go off and they've never been trained, and they might be doing fabulous things because they understood it from the beginning in their way. And I know this has happened because I've met people who say, oh, I've used the chart for years. And I say, well, I want to know what you're doing. It's a choral director. I want to hear about that. Someone who works with the Hard of Hearing and Deaf up in New York City. And I want to know what she's doing. So I'm reaching out to people, hoping that some of them will come and just really broaden our understanding of what the chart can do in different settings. That's very, very exciting to me. And I hope it is to you too. So along those lines, that's why you'll see this kind of very inclusive look to the website. Feel free to jump in as I share.
Oh, I had an idea. I see that the topic of the plenary is, or of the keynote is, accent equity, and would there be room for I don't know, just a instructional session about different dialects of English and how they could be represented on the chart? Would that be something that you'd be interested in
He's so
seeing?
cool.
Yes,
Because I know I teach,
that
I
is
teach
yes.
I teach a class in accents and dialects, and I was thinking, well, I know you don't like to get into the weeds about exactly how the you don't want to teach your students all the different dialect, not to worry about the different dialects, but sometimes people are interested in oh, now I can see on the chart how my pronunciation of bad is different from your pronunciation of bad, is different from your pronunciation of bad.
Yeah.
I can locate it for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that is interesting to you.
It is.
I think it would be
Amina, is that
very
interesting to
encouraging.
you? Of course it is. Yeah, exactly. I still remember, we've had our experiences together, but just taking just this question, I think itself
Yeah,
is
Olive and
possibly a
Auburn.
whole presentation. So
We could do an Olive Auburn presentation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm available for any of those things that you think you want. I'm not
beautiful.
sure
Yeah.
how to turn it into, a sexy proposal. But
Well, we do our best, right? That's why we're here.
And-
Suzanne, what
and
about
can I just say real
Oh.
quick, Karen, if you have two great ideas and you want to present two different presentations, go ahead and submit two. We also might have the possibility of opening up some of these sessions to the public in a very limited way. It depends sort of on what we get, how many people we get. But we were as part of our mission with the Planet Word Museum, we had an idea of having a couple of sessions to people who are visiting the museum. One would be, what color is your name? And having people sort of explore this idea. And so anyway, if it's something that you think would be interesting to the public, just again, make a note of it. Not 100% that we will be able to do that, but it's something to think about.
Great. I'd like to just finish my first point here. We were looking at the site.
that.
This is beautiful. Jennifer's put this together. This is all still scrolling on the same page. But do visit these different tabs as you need to, knowing that they're there for you. The venue and tickets, I just want you to note, we've got the actual conference, but we also have a dinner that we'll be having on that Friday night. So there's a little bit of information here, and there's a lot more information right below. Okay. And so just know that evening we're, 75 of us, a nice mixture, are going to get together at a restaurant that's right on the Red Line Metro, not too far of a Red Line ride from the site of the conference. And we encourage people to come to that. That'll be a lot of fun. Okay. Questions you might have about the schedule are here on, there's venue, there's the schedule itself. Okay. So you can see we've got those concurrent sessions. Okay. And this will shift a little bit. It's a skeletal schedule, but it'll evolve over time. Okay.
Yeah. Keep going back to this page because there will be updates there and announcements. And so this is until we get the course running up in the academy, this will be the main place where we provide information as it develops.
We're going to go here in a minute, but I would like to hear from others in the room. Suzanne, do you have any ideas that you're floating around for a proposal by chance?
Yeah, for sure. Rhythm. What else? That's my go-to. Rhythm in English. How to, help your students speak. Well, I'm always interested in the segmentals, but I think I have a really sharper interest in the prosody part of it. So yeah, that's what I'll be working on, talking about. I was glad to get the information today about presentation versus workshop and interactive presentation. I think mine's interactive, but I'm just considering that now. I know that I feel like I would want the 35 minutes. So
yeah. You'll make it interactive.
No, it already is to a certain degree interactive, but it's not the kind of interactive where you turn and talk to your neighbor and share that way. It's more, it's different. So
definitely. Well, that sounds great. Gilson, what about you? Are you thinking about some things you might want to share? Ideas, experiences?
Yeah, I have some experience about work with books to teach or to learn English too. I work with a big picture, with a whole chapter, and after that I work on verb by verb and cut it in pieces and improve our understanding around a lot of words there. Could I share it for a moment here?
Sure, give us a glimpse.
Yeah,
to give us an idea.
Yeah.
I know you've done a lot of work developing in Canva, right? Sort of, these are materials.
Yeah.
You then turn around and use. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
This
is a book, this is one. This is chapter 1. And here, after read the whole book, I start to explore a verb and improve my understanding by cut piece by piece a verb. And after that, verbs here from the chapter 1, and here new icons here, silent letter and something more. Yeah. And here something like this. Yeah.
Because I know you, Gilson, if I can sort of, I know a bit more about your process. I think what fascinates me is knowing how you have created a program for yourself as a lifelong learner of English, and that has informed, and you've then tested it on your students, and it's working for your students. So you're really a designer and an action researcher without all of those labels, you know, but that's what you're doing. You're iterating and redesigning and, you know, revising. And that's very empowering. I mean, it's a very empowering idea that you've been self-taught largely once you got the Color Vowel tools.
Right.
I, for one, would be interested in that. I don't know. So, you know, raise your hand, you know, if you'd like to hear more from that. Yeah, wonderful.
That's
Doug, what
okay.
about you? What kinds? You said you talked about little half-baked, fully baked ideas. Do you have ideas that if you were coming, that you would share?
I don't even have any half-baked ones at this point. I just dialed in to listen, see, because you know I don't have any credential in any of this. The only credential I have is level 1.
Let's talk about that. I'm so glad you said that. This is so important to me. I couldn't be more passionate about this. So, I love my field. I studied it. I have an advanced degree in it. Fine. But I know, and I hope Jennifer, you're going to be nodding. I know for a fact, because of the work that we do, that having a degree is not it's neither necessary nor is it sufficient sometimes. If you take the logic statement about necessary and sufficient, okay? I know a great number of volunteer tutors and teachers who have come from other careers like you, Doug, who are fabulous teachers and who develop new ideas. And whether you have a degree in language teaching or not is completely not relevant. It's just not relevant. And I don't want that to be a block. Just want to say that right now. If you teach, you are somebody who's a legitimate potential presenter. If you have something that you've done, we want to know about it. So
Can I just weigh in on that? I agree wholeheartedly, and I've been reading a lot lately around this, and Tracy Derwing talks about that specifically, and the idea of trial and error in the classroom or whatever your teaching setting is, and if it works, it works, and nobody needs to, you know, expect a long explanation. If it works, it just works. So I really believe strongly in that, Doug, and I total respect for that.
in fact, I've known a number. Oh, sorry, Jennifer, go.
I was gonna say, I taught for 30 years with only my Peace Corps stage training, which, you know, covered 3 months. And, you know, ongoing little workshops, but, you know, that was enough to inform me about teaching, and that became my methodology, and I developed it, and I relied on instinct and finding out what worked and what didn't work. And I had people come and observe me and go, wow, what method was that? And they'd spout all these names, and I go, sorry, I don't know. It's just the way I teach. And it was Color Vowel that made, and Dr. Barr, who inspired me to go and get my master's. So labels mean nothing. If, you know, if you are a teacher and your students walk away happy and having made progress, then you are a valid teacher. It doesn't matter if you've taken, if for this conference, again, it doesn't matter if you've done basics or not, whether you're level 1, 2, or 3 trained. We want to hear from everybody who is doing good work in the classroom.
Yeah. And what
So
I hope
I started doing international project management is what I was doing for 30 years for IT system engineering. So I did a lot of training presentations to people whose English wasn't their first language. That's why I thought I should be able to do this. And actually, I think I'm pretty good at it, but it's a curiosity thing for me, and I think probably Karen knows I ask a lot of questions and look at a lot of detail. But what I really have been doing with all the things that I attend is I find things that interest me and I try them out in my classroom. So in terms of developing something original, there's not much there.
But it's all data. All the data is valid.
Yeah.
What happens in your classroom, what you found worked versus what you found didn't work, that's grist for my mill, because I listen to what the teachers tell me works and doesn't work, and I say, oh, I wonder why that is and what theory will explain this and what theory won't explain that. You don't have to know the theory in order to give me the data. So the more data I have, the happier I am. So go ahead and bring and ask questions or say, I have a student that does this weird thing. What the heck? And I'll say, gosh, let's look into that.
And two other thoughts on that. One is I love interdisciplinary, cross-sectional thinking when two fields come together. And I often find it's the engineers, the analytical thinkers from those fields when they come into English teaching that are able to provide a new lens on things that, say, those of us who come from more of a linguistics background or an educational background may not have. So also very, very valuable. I hope to lure a friend of mine from New Mexico who has been using the chart for years, and he's a retired roads and transportation engineer, and the way that he approached his literacy tutoring was very methodical, to say the least. And when he started combining, I'll just sort of summarize, but Cuisinart rods, the use of colored rods with color vowel, he was able to reach his particular students in this very particular way. No one else on earth is doing that. And it doesn't matter what's published. If there is something published like that, it also is not relevant to the fact that we're here to share these ideas as the humans who are doing them. So that's my second thought there. Whether or not it's, been there, done that. I haven't been there. I haven't done that. I hope you'll come and share it. Okay. So keep that in mind, Doug. I hope we're tempting you to think about sharing ideas. Okay. I know that you have a classroom where you're doing all kinds of wonderful things. I've seen pictures. I would love to drive down and watch you. And I hope that tells you that you probably have something. Think of some routine. And this is not just Doug. Think of the routines that you've crafted for you and your students. Think of a particular way that you've put together this one kind of, maybe you use the color vowel discovery activity. That's a pretty widely distributed activity, well known. But maybe you do it in a particular way, and you've adopted it for a particular audience. There was a point where I made it for tabletop version, and for round tables, and I made it shorter in time by reducing it by one word. Who knows what you're doing with it? Maybe it's special. Think about sharing it. So it can be a variation on something that's already known. All of these things are ways to contribute. Let's take a moment then, if we will, and look at the actual form and just see what questions come up. You always will have time to go and click on this form. It's due on the 31st of December, so it's due pretty soon. But we put this together pretty with a lot of intention. That said, there are going to be questions that come up. And I know Jennifer's probably within earshot, so we can sort of continue this way. This is where some of those items were further fleshed out. But again, we're just brainstorming and invite your ideas. Okay, we want to know what you're doing. We've explained that already. We have the session types and the timeline. Okay. All right. Very simple. I'm just going to fill in, this kind of thing for these so we can get to the next steps with the stars. Next. Okay. Session types. So, which of the 4 essential techniques will you touch upon in your presentation? We've created this item just to reinforce the idea that we do want to convey color vowel strategies when they're relevant and when they're present. And so it's more sort of a mindful check. If it ends up being none or not applicable, that's not going to keep us from considering the application, the submission. But it's just
Need
here
a box for other also.
That's right. That's true. We could change that. In fact, I don't know if, let me just make some little notes to myself. We can change the wording on that to be more inviting. Okay. To other. Okay, great. Which of the color vowel principles of teaching will your session be related to? These are directly taken from our principles that we often present in different courses of ours. We won't go through that, of course, but I want you to know that this is something that we come by honestly. Things like spending time with spoken language, minimizing the cognitive load on learners. So you can check these items on or off. Okay. Any questions? I'll give you a moment.
And this is an opportunity to think about it if you haven't had it, ever considered it before.
Yeah.
To go through the form, Karen, you might need to pick things.
That's right. I'll go ahead and pick. I've been sort of picking. And then what kind of session? Okay, so this is sort of say priming the field or priming your mind for what we're about to do in this. Okay. Next. So these are open answers, and Jennifer, am I right that they could write as much as they need to? There's nothing's going to stop them, like a word limit.
Right. If it where it says 10 words maximum, that's going to be a short answer field, but outlining your main points, you can write it in Google or Word and copy and paste it. What you get in this section here, this session proposal, will be determined in part by what you picked in the previous question about. So you can see, it's asking you about the panel discussion. I think for the first three types, this is all the same. But if you say that you want to do the swap shop, it makes it very, very simple, and it just, it just asks you for a few questions. You don't have to fill out as much. So
we've tried to make the swap shop. One rationale behind it is if you've never presented before, and it seems intimidating to be, in front of the room, and presentation just seems too much for you. Maybe you want to dip your toe in the water with a swap shop setting where it's really just several people coming together, nobody standing up in front, rather maybe you're around a table. That's how we'll configure the room, and you share. Okay. So then you might end up with something like this. It's quite a bit, it's a simple kind of form, and then you're done. So we've aimed to take the intimidation out of being a contributor to the conference.
Right. And a lot of these points here about what who it's for and what it's about, a lot of this is just so that we can take groups and either build them around similar contexts or similar learner levels. And so it would just to give us more of an idea of putting these all together in a cohesive way. So, don't sweat it if you're not exactly sure. And if you're not sure if it's reading comp or reading fluency, for example, just check both and don't worry about it. So,
Amina, you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask about beginners and low literacy. So you mean beginner English speakers and low literacy as in those who are having problems with reading?
Yeah, you can be a beginner, but have literacy. So you're able to read, if you're a Spanish speaker, for example, you can read in Spanish. You might be able to read English, the words that you do know, you'll be, when you see a stop sign, it says stop. But low literacy might be somebody who has no literacy in their own language, or perhaps they're struggling with some kind of a reading issue. I'm sure Dr. Barr could explain it better than me, but
you're doing fine.
A beginner is not necessarily a low literacy student.
Yeah. And similarly, I'll add, as per my experience down the road in Virginia at REAP, low literacy students can also be intermediate or even advanced learners. So you can have check marks like that, because one of our mantras over there at REAP was once a literacy student, always a literacy student, meaning it's worth the teacher being aware that the student has come from a literacy journey and will continue that journey. And so they progress when they have the right supports for their literacy issues that will support them. So the word low might not be the best it's the conventional word, but it shouldn't be considered only for lower level learners either. That's a point we didn't get to make during this webinar series, did we?
Can I
Sounds
make
like a workshop question.
Yeah, that's great.
I was
Nice.
gonna make a suggestion. Do you think that it would be better if the low literacy was underneath high, intermediate, or advanced? Meaning that it applies to all of those people? Or would that be confusing?
I think the order and the form would be a bit confusing, but I love, thinking about how you could have this kind of check mark potentially. And it would be a unique situation, like a program that I was at, that where you really track a student who has been identified as having a low literacy background. And so that's how we know. A lot of times these low literacy students will end up, let's say you're at a program that doesn't track or identify those students. You won't necessarily, without certain training, realize that your, say, high intermediate course has a mixture of both literacy and lower literacy students. It's more about the strategies that they employ. Suzanne.
I have to
Suzanne?
go. Just saying goodbye. That's all. Sorry, I've got to go.
Hey, thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on the other end there with the proposal. In
See you
DC.
soon.
Suzanne, just let me say real quick before you go that if you're filling out for one of the other types, not the swap shop, there's no abstract, these are not high academic papers that we're looking for. We're just looking for a summary that will help us get an idea of how it'll fit into our program, for the 2 days, and also so that we can create a booklet or some kind of material so people can choose what sessions they're interested in. So
Perfect. That's clear. Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions arising from the questions we're asking here? I'm going to check off some things so we can move along. Let's see. There we go. And thank you. So we've aimed to keep it.
if you go back, Karen, and do it for a different type, then you'll see that it's
Yeah. So we'll do it now. You'll have to delete these from our what's being collected there.
yes, yeah,
Down here. So let's do just a typical workshop this time. Okay, so proposal. Oh, that's an if question.
and that's not required, so that's okay.
Okay. Same as before.
So there's 3 things to think about. There's the title of it. What are the main points that you're going to be making? And that's to help you think through, okay, I've got 20 minutes to speak. What are the things that I'm going to do? This is mostly to help you flesh it out in your mind, and also that we know it's fully baked and not half baked.
Right.
And then tell us how your session will help teachers. Again, this is the goal of our conference. This is the teaching excellence part, is think about what teachers are going to walk away with. How is this going to be applicable to the target audience's practice? And then a brief summary. And that brief summary is going to be what goes into the whatever it is we have,
the program,
the catalog,
yeah,
whether it's online or in paper, that people will use to decide if that's something they want to attend. And then I think, Karen, is if you scroll down, and that's pretty much it. You can see there's no abstract, there's no long description. And we're not asking for citations.
So then one question that could come up in a person's mind is, well, gosh, this doesn't look like it's very rigorous. Is this going to be a good conference? And if I could take a moment to kind of explore it from that lens, what are we looking for, and what's going to be sort of a deal breaker? Of course, we know so many folks, and it's a small number of people, so we'll be able to contact folks, but I want to say that any proposal we review, we will give feedback on. So it won't just be, a darkly or starkly chosen accept or reject. We plan to make this a developmental experience. But one thing I'm looking for here is the idea that you're not just talking about what happened, but you're really aiming to communicate that with others. And that shows in the title, the idea that, you know, I'm thinking about how are others going to interpret these words so that they know what I'm about to talk about. The title should be reflected and vice versa in the description, so that we have a sense that if this is the brand of the talk, that this is the product of the talk, right? This is the actual content. If you're able to outline the main points, like Jennifer said, and give even timings to get a sense of, you know, for a 40-minute period, this is how I'm going to break it up. That gives us a sense that you've really started putting some thought into the concrete delivery of that presentation. Okay. The third item is also, I think it's a practice in empathy, to be able to imagine how this will help other teachers with their own practice. And you can be specific. These will help other volunteers, or this will help other pronunciation coaches, or even specifically pronunciation coaches who work solely online with Japanese students. You know, you can be very specific if that's the reach of what your insight offers. And then we can talk with you and say, you know what, I think it's relevant to more people than that, and we can help you stretch it. Okay. And so that's the form. And I hope what this is doing is, you know, activating a sense like, oh, this isn't all so hard. I'm going to jump over there. We're aiming for December 31st. I'm in a strange state of mind. December 31st as a deadline for submission. You know, I'm a procrastinator, but I would not want to be doing this on New Year's Eve. So I would start now, get this done before Christmas, and then look at it again. Do this all in a Word document, by the way, or some other document. Do it somewhere else so that you can look at all the parts together before you copy and paste them into the form. I strongly recommend that, because it's just no fun. It's very frustrating to go back and try to make it all match up in a form. So start working on it. Ideas, questions?
Reminders.
Reminders.
Do it now. Get registered now. Even if you're thinking about doing a presentation, go ahead and register.
Yeah.
And then we will refund you if your presentation gets accepted for presentation. And
Partial refund.
we're
It's
trying to do
lower
some
rate.
planning.
Yeah.
April's going to be here before we know it. And so really it only gives us 3 months to do some planning. So we really, really need to know how many people. So we would appreciate registrations.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any registrations yet?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How many?
We have right now about 20 from the early
Right.
registration section. So
Enough for a conference.
It's enough for a conference. Yeah. We'd like to have about 5 times as many as that. So,
Yeah.
or 10 times as many. But in any case, one thing I haven't had a chance to ask, and this is a genuine question and kind of a nice way to wrap up, is if you were coming, I'm going to just put that out there as a hypothetical, because not everybody who watches this will be able to come. But if you were going to a Color Vowel conference, what one thing would you very much hope to experience at that conference? And it could be maybe somebody who you've seen presented at Fridays at 5, and you really hope that's there. It could be something from the Color Vowel approach that you've only experienced online, but you hope it's going to happen in person. But what would be like the image of a Color Vowel conference?
I want everybody in the same room doing Color Vowel yoga together.
Okay. Wish granted, Robin. We'll do a little yoga. Okay. I actually have kind of a nice follow-up to that. But yeah, what else? A little bit of Color Vowel yoga.
I want to meet Karen Taylor.
We never see each other. Okay, so noted. Okay, you've got it. What else?
For me, it would be a unique experience because, again, I know about Color Vowel from being at AU and taking Dr. Barr's workshops at AU. But everything that you're doing is so new to me, you know, to find out that you've got this website and these classes and courses and certifications and all of that. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Wonderful.
Would
Amina, I'm
be-
curious, how did you find out about today's session?
because I participated in the last 3 days, those workshops. And the reason for it is because I was doing that project at a class at AU, and Sarah Knowles said, I gotta get Jennifer Campion to send you some link or something. And so when when I got this link from Jennifer, I said, well, I have to go. So I went to all of the 3 sessions. And
Wonderful.
then you talked about this one, and I said, okay, so let me go to this one too.
Well, Amina, would you,
What's the name of Sarah's class? What is the name of the class?
It's an independent study curriculum and
Okay.
design. And I chose pronunciation because I taught at REAP too, volunteer. So I'm a volunteer, right? And I taught at REAP, and I used to teach in community centers, and I taught pronunciation with well, not colors. I was using the
IPA?
pairs and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it's important, there's one person I work with, he's Tibetan. He lives here, he's been here over 30 years, and his pronunciation is so bad, and yet he translates from Tibetan to English. So he's reading at this level, this high level, and writing, but he can't pronounce, and he never learned pronunciation.
Yeah.
That was also a reason why I chose this particular project. I wanted to help him.
Oh, wonderful. Amina, I think it's just wonderful that you've made it here today. And I hope you continue finding out about what we do. As far as unique, that's what you said. And that's, Robin touched on something that's unique. I thought one thing I would like to share is, there we go. Some features that make it unique, and that'll be kind of a nice way truly to close down. We aim, earlier I had, let me just grab something to look at. 1 second. There we go. One thing we aim to do is to actually walk the walk of we use the term brain-based, and we live it in the method, but we actually are aiming to create a conference experience that's also brain-friendly and brain-based. And what we mean by that is that we're not just a mind being ported around in a vessel that's called the body and planted in a chair and made to listen for 6 hours a day. That simply is not what we know. The brain doesn't work well that way. We know that experiential and movement and music will help activate better retention and just an overall better experience. And so something we're still working on is the entry and ending caps of every presentation are going to have some combination of silence, time to actually digest what we've just heard, and then a structure to the question and comments section that is typically, who has a question for the presenter? And usually those questions are sort of the impulsive questions. They're not always the best questions. And so we really want to visit that idea of what is the part right after a person's presentation that honors it, that gives people a chance to digest and synthesize and listen to each other. And we're working on that. It's really talking about a method in a way of rounding out a presentation in a moment at a conference, our conference. That's one thing. We also do aim to have color vowel yoga. So thank you, Robin. Why? Because it opens up the mind to have the body move through sound. And even if we're not using it to teach pronunciation in the moment, we know it activates new awareness when we do that. Our dinner will be unique. That's going to be a lot of fun. I've got, lots of people trying to help with me, helping shape the night, but I'm still fixated on the word enchantment. We're going to chant that night, one way or the other. I don't know how. And I'm in talks with Liz Bigler, who's probably now committed. Liz, I'm putting your name out there to be our MC that night. This will be at Politics, and I'm sorry, this will be at Busboys and Poets. They have a beautiful stage there at the Tacoma. I'm mentioning that for you, Amina, because I know you're in the area. They got a stage room with a private room, and we're going to do a lot of some fun things in that 3-hour evening of dinner. A delicious place to eat anyway. Okay. Cherry blossoms will make it unique. It's going to be cherry blossom season, and it's going to be beautiful.
You're decreeing that?
I'm say that again.
That's your decree, is it?
This is my decree. It will be beautiful. It will be beautiful. And you'll be in the Planet Word Museum. That's sort of my last unique piece. That a lot of conferences are in these gigantic conference halls, and they're not made for human beings, in my opinion. I'll never recall going to Chicago, to the Chicago Convention Hall. And I got there to set up my booth, and I encountered no fewer than 4 different people crying, like literally wandering around lost and crying. These are educators going to the conference. And I thought, wow, this building is making people cry. And so we're going to be in a building that makes you smile. It's a beautiful, small, intimate building that's dedicated to language. And I hope you'll join us. Now I'm making myself cry. Thank you for coming today, everybody. Jennifer, thank you again for the website, everything you're doing. Everybody, please consider submitting a proposal and coming and joining us. We're going to have a great time together. Okay. Have a great evening. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for coming, Amina. Bye-bye, Gilson.